This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerate. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. I had the best words. God bless the United States.
Around the nation, TYT Nation, welcome to the show. It's Monday. It's been a little bit of a crazy weekend. We're going to do something a little bit different today. Everything sucks and is incredibly depressing. So I'm just going to sit here and play Animal Crossing for the next hour. No, I'm kidding. We do have some news, but boy, wouldn't that be a nice little respite from the insanity going on in this world. So we're going to talk about how Donald Trump hid in his little bunker on Friday as protests hit D.C. We also are going to talk about some released audio. I'm going to let you guys listen to some of that call, what we have, between Donald Trump and some of the governors. You're not going to be surprised that, of course, it's Donald Trump showing his fascist tendencies or wannabe fascist tendencies. We're going to talk about that. We've got a good, little bit of a feel-good story. That's fun. So, tiny little bit of good news, and then we're going to dive back into disaster with Tom Cotton, and then an update on coronavirus, which is also happening today. So, yes, coronavirus still happening. Although we do have some breaking news, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer has basically rescinded the stay-at-home order for Michigan. So, Michigan is going to start to open up. I am a little concerned, especially with everything that's going on. So, that's kind of the rundown of what we're going to talk about today. As you can probably tell, I am disastrously tired. I am low energy Jeb Bush.
Please clap.
So that's how I feel today. I did not get a lot of sleep. And so this should be fun getting through this show. Fun times. All right. So before we get started, please like and share the stream. We've been getting hit since we have been covering some of the protest stuff. We've been hit with demonetization, as always, of course. It helps super chats, channel memberships, signing up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That helps, because, again, if you cover these honestly, you're going to get likely hit with demonetization because of YouTube and advertisers, and so they don't like it when people tell the truth. I know, it's crazy. So if you can help us out, appreciate it. All right. Anyway, that said, let's dive into the show. We'll start out with Bunker Boy. Fun times. All right. Where where was President Trump over the weekend? Apparently hiding in his bunker. Yes, President Trump hid himself in a bunker over the weekend as protesters took the streets in Washington, D.C. A few hundred people actually had showed up in front of the White House, causing Mr. Trump to run underground to his little underground presidential bunker, or at least, of course, the Secret Service, they said, spirited him away to the underground bunker, just in case. Just in case. Now, according to the New York Times that talked about this story, and you're going to see Trump's reaction to it later on, there's a protocol, and it makes sense to get the president to safety. Now, that's if people in the White House and the president feel as though they are threatened. So understand, we got some feelings going on here. Donald Trump saw the crowd that was chanting outside and felt very threatened. Why? It's because it was a crowd full of black people. So very, very threatened. And he's like, I got to get out of here. To the bunker. We got to go to the bunker. All right. Now, look, the other notable use of the bunker actually did make sense. That's when Vice President Cheney was brought there during September 11th. So that's as the planes were hitting the World Trade Center and when it hit the Pentagon. And so, yes, he was very concerned. Cheney was very concerned that there would be a plane that could hit the White House. And so into the emergency bunker. And that's fine, right? That actually makes a little bit of sense. And so because specifically that bunker can withstand an airplane. All right. So, but what threats did peaceful protesters outside the White House cause to the president? I don't know. I've never heard of Obama, by the way, getting shoved into a bunker. Right? I've never heard of that. Never heard of that. I mean, maybe he did, and we weren't told about it. I don't remember hearing about that at all. And there have been protests at the White House. In fact, there have been reports, and I remember this, of people shooting at the White House while Obama was president. And he didn't get in that bunker. All right. So, but Trump, again, according to the New York Times, he was rattled by the protests and then spent the evening in the bunker Friday evening with his family. To which I say, beta male, cucked. Oh, so incredibly sad and pathetic. What happened, tough guy? What happened? And get this. We got the White House literally turning out the lights and hiding. Take a look. What happened? Well, what is this? Like Halloween? Are you afraid of trick-or-treaters? Is that what's going on? I mean, you shut the lights out if you don't want to hand out candy. I mean, come on, dude. Really? Oh, my God. That's great. So now, of course, there was a lot of response to this, and I'm going to share some of it because it's amusing. Publius, probably didn't say that right, said, Donald Trump is hiding in a White House bunker. Most cowardly tough guy in history. Another user says, he could have told the Secret Service no. Presidents do so all the time. He could have even tried to go outside and speak to the protesters like a real leader. He couldn't, of course, because he's a coward. Sad. Now, Trump's response to this, especially, let's go to Trump's response to the New York Times, right? To the reporting, where he simply, in all caps, responds with fake news. Okay. All right. But then again, here, let's go to Saturday morning here. He tweeted this out. Great job last night at the White House by the U.S. Secret Service. They're not only totally professional, but very cool. I was inside, watched every move, and couldn't have felt more safe. That's because you're in a bunker. Uh, they let the protesters scream and rant as much as they wanted to. Well, of course. Um, that's the First Amendment at work there, buddy. Yeah, they kind of have to. If they're not being violent, and they weren't, these protests were generally, at least in front of the White House, fairly good. I think there was, though, a couple of reports of people throwing some bottles. Yeah, okay. All right. Go run to the bunker then, away from the bottles. All right. But look, as far as chanting and protesting or screaming or whatever, First Amendment, that's what it's for. Literally redressing your government, or redressing your grievances to the government, I should say. So now, again, I want to go back to the fake news thing. Which part about this is fake news? You just admitted in a tweet, like, yes, the Secret Service, totally cool. They were totally cool. And then we went into the bunker and everything was great. Okay, well, that's 100% real then, right? That's not fake news. What happened? Maybe it's maybe the fake news part was him being quote unquote rattled, perhaps. I don't know. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I think he was, because I think there's never been a more fake tough guy than Donald Trump. Any little tiny little whiff of danger, he's out, gone. Just like, for example, Vietnam, right? So now look, when I criticize Donald Trump for getting 5 deferments and not going off to war, that doesn't mean that I support the war. No. The problem is that these guys are some of the biggest chicken hawks ever. I mean, you can't sit and cheerlead for a war and then desperately use every connection that you have to get out of actually fighting the war. See, there are actual people like Muhammad Ali, right? Muhammad Ali was anti-war. He said, no way, I'm not going to Vietnam. Screw you. And you know what? Dude went to prison for it. He actually walked the walk. He walked the walk. And then you got Donald Trump and you got Ted Nugent. Ted Nugent literally talked about if he was ever unleashed upon the enemy, oh, man, you better watch out, man. Ted Nugent's going to take them all on. He's going to win. And then Ted Nugent, of course, famously shit his pants for like a month so that he didn't have to go. And again, Donald Trump didn't go quite that badly, but he got deferments for his bone spurs, right? The bone spurs that he doesn't even remember, because a reporter asked him, hey, what foot is that bone spur in? And he's like, I don't know, maybe both of them. And he doesn't know. Of course he doesn't know. Totally weak, totally pathetic, totally sad. Absolutely. Now, one Twitter user points out, please take solace in the fact that Trump was crapping his pants as they rushed him into an underground bunker. And I do. Seriously, now we know why Trump was tweeting about vicious dogs and ominous weapons. He was scared out of his mind, out of his demented mind, in a bunker. Yes. Hilarious. He was also, of course, talking about designating Antifa as a terrorist organization. Now, it's funny, right? He's talking about that. It's like, Antifa, terrorists, right? What about the actual right-wing groups who are responsible for killing Americans? Are they not terrorist, domestic terror groups? Oh, no, of course. They're right-wing. So, no, of course they can't be terrorists, right? They're American patriots, even though they hate, like the sovereign citizens, for example, hate the fact that there's government at all and believe that the government doesn't apply to them. No rules. I can do whatever I want. I can kill whoever I want. Doesn't matter. That would be a terrorist. I'm just saying. And so, but look, once again, Donald Trump shows his inability to lead by literally hiding up in his bunker and then using his time rage tweeting at the media. When we have a pandemic, yes, that didn't go away. The pandemic, coronavirus didn't go away. COVID-19, right? Still here. And not only that, but you've got massive protests and also an economic depression. I think we warned you guys. This is the iceberg. There it is. It's here. We've already hit it. Fun times. Moving on here. President Trump wants you to know that your governor is to blame and for these protests that are sweeping the nation because they're just too weak. They need to get strong. In fact, in a recent call to governors, he talked about how weak their leadership has been and said, oh, no, if you want to actually win, you got to dominate the protesters. Take a listen.
What happened in the state of Minnesota, they were electric stock all over the world. They took over the police department. The police were running down the street, sirens blazing, the rest of them running. It was on camera. And then they wiped out. You probably have to build a new one, but I've never seen anything like it. And the whole world was laughing. 3 days later, I spoke to the governor. The governor is, I think, on the call, and he's an excellent guy. And all of a sudden, and I said, you got to use the National Guard in big numbers. They did it first, and they did. And I'll tell you that, I don't know what it was. Governor, it was the third night, fourth night. Those guys walked through that stuff like it was butter. They walked right through, and you haven't had any problems since. I mean, they don't. They're not going to go there. Now they'll go to some other place. But once you called out and you dominated, you took the worst place, and you made it. They didn't even cover it last night because there was so little action. Because you dominated. You dominated. Now, what happened to New York, I have to tell you, I live in Manhattan. What's going on in Manhattan, I have no idea. New York's finest, they got to be allowed maybe to do their job. I don't know what's happening in Manhattan, but it's terrible. And because it's New York, because it's Manhattan, it gets a lot of press. So they really spend a lot of time on it. But New York has got to have to toughen up. And we'll send you National Guard if you want. You have the largest police force in the country, 40,000 people, I understand. But what's going on in New York is terrible. It's terrible. Of all the places. What went on last night in Los Angeles with the stores and the storefronts is terrible. No domination. You have to dominate.
Total domination. You have to dominate. Toughen up, New York, he says from inside of his bunker. Bunker boy. All right, so that's part of the call. The rest of this call went on for quite a bit longer, with unfortunately some of the governors like taking his framing. Oh yeah, we got to be tough. Yeah, we got to dominate. Except for J.B. Pritzker. So that's Illinois, and he's like, no, that's not what we should be doing. In fact, we kind of need the leadership from the president of the United States. To which, of course, Trump had replied, "The loser said, baby." That's actually not what he said, but nonetheless, other things that were said during the call was he says, if you don't dominate, you're wasting your time. They're going to run over you. You're going to look like a bunch of jerks. You have to dominate. What? More. It's a movement. If you don't put it down, it will get worse and worse. Again, this is Black Lives Matter, right? This is the movement. Trump says you got to put it down. You got to put it down. You got to kill it, right? You got to end it. You got to dominate it, right? And he said the only time it's successful is when you're weak, and most of you are weak. You've got to arrest people. You have to track people. You have to put them in jail for 10 years, and you'll never see this stuff again. I don't know if he's talking about actual protesters, or more likely he's got to be talking about the people who are doing crime, right? People who are, rioting and looting stores and setting fires, things like that, right? But I don't know. I don't know who he's talking about. And I'll be honest about that. And by the way, you gotta track people, right? This is the one time that Donald Trump actually might be in favor of contact tracing. Remember the whole thing, like where for coronavirus, COVID-19, where you track people that have the virus to make sure, like to see who they've been in contact with so that they can get notified to get tested for COVID-19, all that stuff. Donald Trump wasn't in favor of that. No, he didn't like contact tracing. But if it has to do with, protesters, well, then, of course, we will contact trace you all freaking day, all day long, all day long. And so now he also blames, of course, quote unquote, the radical left. I mean, it's amazing, right? According to CBS News, you know it. Everybody knows it, but it's also looters. And it's also people that figure they can get free stuff by running into stores and running out with television sets. Talking about the looters. I saw it. A kid has a lot of stuff. He puts it in the back of a brand new car and drives off. That never happened. I can guarantee he did not see that. That probably, maybe it happened, but I doubt that he saw something just like that. Come on, dude, really? All right. And he says, you have every one of these guys on tape. Why aren't you prosecuting them? You actually have to have a lot of work. I'm just saying, right? Now, he also says, the harder you are, the tougher you are, the less likely you're going to be hit. That's actually not true. The harder you go, without solving the underlying issues of police brutality, the more this is going to happen, the more you're going to have protests. And that's the thing. That's the thing that he doesn't understand. The tougher you get, quote unquote, the worse it's going to get. The more people are going to go out on the streets. I mean, what are you going to do? When you start shooting people? You start killing people? Protesters? That's going to be a gigantic mess. An absolute mess. But here's where he gives it away. He says, it is a war in a certain sense, and we're going to end it fast. That should scare you. Look, he already wants the military involved, right? And so do a lot of Republicans. In fact, later on, I'm going to show you Tom Cotton wanting the 101st Airborne to come down and start shooting people. No quarter, he says. War crime, right? He's a proto-fascist. He's an authoritarian. And then, of course, he goes and he says, well, no, the problem is anarchists and Antifa, right? Those are the people. And so that it's important to mention that because there's a narrative out there, right, of outside agitators, people that are not part of the communities that are coming in and doing some of the rioting and looting. I'm sure that there are some anarchists that are, causing, doing a little bit of damage. But let's be honest. Most of the anger in these communities is from people in the communities. That includes even some of the fires and some of the rioting, right? They are people that from the community. And why it's important to point that out is because, if you say that it's all outside agitators, then you take away agency from the movement and you make it easier to crack down, to crush them. Because, they're not part of the community, so they're destroying it anyway. It's not, it has nothing to do with people in the community that are actually angry about the police in the community. No, it's all these outside agitators. So let's go after China. Or let's go after somebody else, right? Those are the people. And of course, what is it? The Democrats, I believe, are like, Russia. It's the Russians. No, the Russians didn't create this issue. Russians didn't create this, problem with policing. It has been here literally for centuries, right? For a very long time, we've had racial problems in this country. And so it's an issue, right? Calling everybody anarchists and outside agitators, it's a way to basically ignore the calls to end police brutality. Now, Trump also said that he would designate Antifa, which is not a hierarchical organization. It's not really an organization at all. It's basically anybody who calls himself an anti-fascist, which I would hope would be most of us, right? Now, there's like Black Bloc that is more likely to basically go up and punch a Nazi, right? So you've got those people. He's saying, oh, no, there should be considered a domestic terror group. except that there's no legal way he can actually do that. That's according to experts. It's like, yeah, you can't just go and do that. That's no. And besides, how could he, right? How many people have died due to Antifa? Nobody. Nobody. As opposed to right-wing authoritarian groups, neo-Nazis, anti-government groups, they have actually killed the most Americans in domestic terrorist attacks. More than Muslims, more than anyone else. You've had these right-wing, anti-authority, anti-government groups that have gone around killing a lot of people. But we don't designate them as terror groups, do we? No, it's because they're right and they're white and they're right wing. They're basically his base. So now a little bit of substance out of the way now, right? Let me note the irony of saying, dude, you got to be tough. Dude, you can't be weak. You're so weak to the governors while hiding in a literal bunker. Not only that, but he turned off the White House lights as if it's Halloween, and of course he was out of candy or he doesn't want to give out candy. Go somebody else. Dude, go somewhere else. I'm gonna release the hounds. Bug somebody else. Weak, sad, pathetic, bunker bitch. Why don't you actually leave the governance to other people, actual leaders, and go hide out the rest of your term, you pathetic wannabe strongman? Sad. All right. I'm going to take a break. We'll come back. We actually have a good police story, which I know is fairly rare. And I know that I'm sure a lot of you will approach it with suspicion. But I think it's good. So let's take a look at it. And hopefully you guys will feel slightly uplifted before we dive back into Tom Cotton and his disaster. So stay right here. Around the Nation, I'm going to thank some patrons and some channel members as well when we get back from the break. So stay right here. Around the Nation.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Why? You're getting nervous, man.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Welcome back to the show. Around the nation right here. TYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you. All right, so first, I'm going to go and thank some patrons, patreon.com/TYT Nation. I want to thank, hold on, Robert Agazino, and let's see, Kelly Pinkerton Best. So, Kelly, you are the best. So thank you for supporting independent progressive media. All right, you guys, if you want to sign up, patreon.com/TYT Nation or become a channel member. Channel members, of course, you also help the show. I want to thank Kevin Myers. And let's see. Try to find a name that I haven't said before. It's difficult because it's hard for me to remember who I've given a shout out to and who I have not. So if you haven't, if I haven't said your name, it's not because I don't like you. No, I love you guys because you support the show. And we're all kind of like a family here. And, we're all a big progressive family. And I appreciate your support. So I haven't said your name. It's like, send me a message or tweet me or something and be like, hey, I'm a patron. You haven't said my name yet. And I'd love a shout out. And I will make sure to jot that down and remember that so I can give you the shout out because I do appreciate what you're doing. Okay. So that said, I don't think I have given a shout out to this is channel members, Alicia Leachy. I don't know if I said that right. So Alicia, Kevin, thank you for signing up. Definitely appreciate it. All right. Also has some super chats here. Kathy Harvey simply says, please vote. All right. Pretty simple. Thank you, Kathy. David Richardson, our New Zealand viewer, says, I guess Trump took a page from the Biden campaign now that Biden's leading over him. And look, I have been seeing that he's got a double-digit lead. I know it's like we still have like 5 months to go, but I mean, and anything can happen. But it's actually kind of a good news. It's kind of a good thing. Like people are sick of Donald Trump's crap, and yeah, we're not gonna get any significant change from a Biden administration. But at the very least, I think it's stopping the bleeding, sort of, kind of. And look, as Ron Placone always says, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm. That's essentially what it is, but at this point, it prevents our arm from being ripped off. That's what I got to say about a Biden presidency. Still better than what we got, even though it's not great. So anyway, thank you, David Richardson. Also, he says, but as always, he couldn't get past the first sentence. Hashtag bunker boy. Because Biden was, of course, hiding in his bunker. Interestingly enough, Biden was actually out there marching with, well, I don't know if he was marching, but he was out there meeting with protesters. So that's good. And then immediately goes out to stick his foot in his mouth once again and saying, oh, yeah, I don't know why police got to be like shooting people, in the heart and everything. They should shoot him in the leg instead. Oh, God, Biden, why? What are you doing? What are you doing? How ridiculous. I wish I would have had that video set up for you guys today because that was disastrous. Oh, my God. Absolutely disastrous. All right. Anyway, that said, let's move on. Again, thank you to all the patrons. Thank you to the channel members, and thank you for your super chats. It helps out greatly, especially since we get, of course, demonetized. I did see another comment here that I wanted to read here, but now it's kind of gone. So I guess I'm gonna have to move on here. Wait. Oh yeah. Weary Pirate says the anarchists do suck. I'm glad to see a lot of protesters stepping in to stop them from destroying public property. That is good. I do like to see them, the protests police themselves. It actually works out way better than when the police actually try to police them because, normally the police are using tear gas canisters and macing 10-year-olds. Yeah. And Martin Trammell says, Russia killed George Floyd. It's it. It was Putin. It was the Russians. Nice one. Okay. Now let's move on. Feel good story of the day.
The only reason we're here is to make sure that you got a voice. That's it. There we go. Don't think for a second that he represents who these cops are from all over the county and around this nation. We go out there to help people, not do that nonsense. There we go. I want to tell you, where's my man? Right there. Where's the gentleman?
Oh, I think he took off.
Okay, yeah, my man.
He took off.
Pastor Hawkins, see, I was going to tell you, we want to be with y'all for real. So I took my helmet off and laid the batons down. I want to make this a parade, not a protest. You got little ones here, you got dogs, so what's up? So listen, I'm just telling you, these cops love you. That cop over there hugs people, so you tell us what you need to do.
Walk with us! 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 Walk with us!
Let's walk. Let's walk.
All right. That was Genesee County Sheriff Chris Swanson joining with the protesters in Flint after he was, of course, invited to walk with people protesting police brutality. So that's good. I like that. I mean, that's kind of what we want. We want more of that and less rubber bullets. Okay? We want the cops to be just as appalled at police brutality as we are and to call for change. So we want a little bit more of that and a lot less of what we've been getting from the rest of the police officers. We want change. We want solidarity. And if you give us the rubber bullets, you're going to get riots. I mean, that's pure and simple, right? Donald Trump is out there talking about how we need to be tough, right? We need to be tough. We need to crack down. We need to go after them. More force, more military. That's not going to do it. No, you're going to end up making the situation much worse. Whereas if you do what this guy's doing, you're going to make the situation better. And I like that. So now, that said, right, you do have issues where there are bad police officers, of course, right? And not just, the ones that are going after protesters and shooting them with the rubber bullets and all that stuff. But you also have some police officers, at least alleged police officers, doing like the COINTELPRO stuff, right? And instigating riots and smashing windows and all that stuff. So that's something to look out for. But I think in this case, I think Swanson cares about his community. That's been, look, that's in Flint. They've been obviously devastated by mismanagement. They've been poisoned. They've been through enough. They've been through enough, and that's it. Now, look, people. When this video came out, people were obviously really positive about this. One says, this is the correct response from police. #WalkWithUs. Another says, Genesee County Sheriff Flint, Michigan, Chris Swanson put down his helmet and baton and asked protesters how he could help. They said, walk with us. So they joined and he walked in solidarity. That's good. Another one, this is a Swanson supporter, J.J. Milliken, says, well, if walk with us is how we change a system that murdered George Floyd. It requires mindfulness of our actions and beliefs. Swanson exemplifies the deputies and officers I know and respect. Community first mentality and lead by example. This is a mindful action. This is change. Look, I think this is the beginning of change, right? That kind of attitude and mentality, that is the beginning of change. It is not change. He has not changed the system. He is still working within this system. But that is a good way to reach out to the community. But we've got to do more. We have to do things together. Both the community and those officers not just only walking together, but working to change the system together. And so he said this on a Facebook post, right? And I think Swanson is serious and actually wanting to do those things. He said, I joined with a chorus of citizens and law enforcement officials alike, calling for the swift arrest and prosecution of each police officer involved in this appalling crime. So not just, not just the officer that put his knee on George Floyd's neck, right? Not just that guy, but all the other officers that were holding him down that were involved, right? He said, the actions we witnessed on that video destroy countless efforts to bolster community policing efforts across our nation and erode trust that is painstakingly built. No, look, I think there's a reason that people don't trust police. And in that line of work, you need the community's trust. If you don't protect them, they don't trust you. If they don't trust you, they won't help you. If they won't help you, you can't do your job. And if you can't do your job, what's the point? Why are you even there? And the answer for, unfortunately, too many officers is not to protect those communities. It's to keep them down. To enforce the old order, to stop black and brown advancement. I mean, just yesterday was the 99th anniversary of the Tulsa race riots. Okay. That was where an angry mob of white racist people burned down an entire area known as Black Wall Street. This was a black, affluent area. 15,000 people were left homeless, black people, right? 600 black businesses were destroyed. You want to talk about rioting, you want to talk about looting and destruction of storefronts. That happened in Tulsa, where white people went and ransacked black-owned businesses. Are a lot of people upset about that now? Oh, no, yeah, it was like 100 years ago. Come on, we've advanced since then. Have we? African Americans have not recovered economically from that. And let's be honest about that. They haven't. Not only that, but you had 1,500 homes that were burnt to the ground, and an entire Greenwood district of Tulsa was literally bombed from the air. It's the first American city that has been air bombed. Okay? So understand the reason that this happened, right? And I know there are a lot of different factors to this specific instance, but generally, black advancement is seen as a direct threat to white supremacy. And what better tool to keep people down than poverty, right? By over-police. How hard is it to get a job if you have a criminal record? Pretty difficult, right? Almost impossible. That's one tool of white supremacy to keep black people down, right? Not only that, but there are so many other ways that the system is stacked against African Americans to begin with, not just to mention policing, right? And so that's a part of it. And I believe that these older institutions, the racist institutions, need to be dismantled, removed, replaced. Now, that said, I'm glad this sheriff is doing the right thing. I like this guy, right? I think he should be hailed as a good model policeman, right? But let's get real here. We need wide systemic change, massive systemic change. And if we have people like Officer Swanson on our side to be able to, go further to really kind of work to dismantle those older systems and build new ones in their place, well, that's great. We need people like that if we're ever going to get real change. All right. Tough but fair, I think. But before I get into it too, hold on. Let me just read one of these comments here. Legalize cannabis nationwide immediately, or there will be no change. It's racist that it was made illegal to begin with. You're absolutely right. Ocean due to Reno. So you're absolutely correct. I would go further and I would legalize all drugs. Or at least decriminalize all drugs. At the very least. Okay? And I know you think, oh, what are you doing? Like, you're encouraging people to do drugs. No. and discouraging the use of drugs to incarcerate not only black bodies and brown bodies, but also poor whites as well. Because that affects them, that over-policing and privatization of prisons really has an impact on all of that. And it hurts primarily black and brown people, but also working class people, the poor, right? Which are not just no longer black people, who are, of course, poorer than poor whites. We've got that. But I'm not going to get too far into that, because I could be here all day, right? Talking about the nuances of that situation. But I got to go forward. But you're right, Deuterino, agreed 100%. All right. Valerie says, legalize, tax, and regulate. Yep. Sex work is valid work as well. Yeah, look, you guys know I agree with sex work. Sex work is work, and that should... the big problem with criminalizing that is you're not helping the women. You're not helping with trafficking. And that's the main thing that they say against legalizing sex work is, it's the trafficking. Well, you're not helping that situation by criminalizing women who would come forward, who are forced into that situation, to then be able to come forward because to say, hey, I'm trafficked, help. It doesn't help when you criminalize those women by keeping it illegal. Also, when you legalize it and regulate it, it tends to actually be safer. So if you actually do want to go into that work, that it is actually more safe. All right, but anyway, move on here. And I realize there's a difference between decriminalization and blanket legalization of drugs. And so that's why I'm saying at least decriminalization. I'd be happy with that. All right. Anyway, let's move on.
If local law enforcement is overwhelmed, if local politicians will not do their most basic job to protect our citizens, let's see how these anarchists respond when the 101st Airborne is on the other side of the street.
That was Republican Senator Tom Cotton saying, yeah, let's just go use the military on the protesters. Yeah, that was him on Fox News. He also added this by tweeting, we need to have zero tolerance for this destruction, and if necessary, the 10th Mountain, 82nd Airborne, 1st Cavalry, 3rd Infantry, whatever it takes to restore order. No quarter for insurrectionists, anarchists, rioters, and looters. You know what that means? No quarter, right? So that's very specific that he's saying. No quarter means shoot them till they're dead. Take no prisoners. You know what that technically is? That is a war crime. You can't do that. Understand what he's saying. American citizens who are, quote unquote, engaging in protest and destruction, right? Shoot to kill. Military, roll up in there and kill Americans. That's what Tom Cotton's saying. All right. So, unfortunately, he's not the only one that's calling for this stuff. Donald Trump had threatened to use the unlimited power of the U.S. military against protesters. Every time I hear, unlimited power, I think of unlimited power. This Star Wars. I could definitely see Donald Trump's face on Palpatine's body now in that. So thanks for that horrific mental image that I just gave everyone. You're welcome. Sure you appreciate that. But no, that's gross. That is horrifying. Talking about using the military against American citizens. Both in the case of Tom Cotton and Donald Trump, who also threatened demonstrators outside the White House with, quote, vicious dogs and ominous weapons. And he said the Secret Service was prepared to use those things against the protesters. And he said, quote, that's when people would have been really badly hurt. look, how much more evidence will it take for Americans to realize that this guy's a wannabe fascist? I mean, I feel like there's more than enough, but understandably, not everybody pays attention to the news. Okay. I tell you what, though, here's who pays attention: his fan base. Well, they love this. They cannot wait to use the military against those quote unquote uppity blacks, right? That's it. I mean, they can't wait to use it. But let me tell you, I don't think the military can legally operate within the border. I mean, yes, you've got the Insurrection Act, which is why Tom Cotton and Trump desperately want to label Antifa as a terrorist group. Which, by the way, remind me, how many people has Antifa killed? None. But they did throw a milkshake, though. So obviously, we must now use the military, the army, to murder them. But they can't do that, right? Because there is the Posse Comitatus Act, right? That says that only the National Guard can act within the borders. You can't have the military basically roll up. Now, look, there are certain instances where they were able to control riots. That was in 1992, LA. There are some, the military was able to come in and do something about that. But generally, the Posse Comitatus Act says you cannot do that. Now, there are two, I believe there are two branches that are exempt to that. I believe might have been the Coast Guard. And I don't know. I'm kind of getting this off the top of my head here from reading and researching earlier. And then Space Force, right? So Space Force. But even then, they've got their own regulations. Although I don't know, could Donald Trump come and use the Space Force against these protesters? All right, Space Force, come on in. 3 guys in spacesuits so far, you know. Maybe they've got ray guns. Who knows? I don't know. Might be interesting. Might be disastrous. But anyway. Look, here's the thing. Right now, why would you even joke about trying to use the military when what we've seen is non-lethal force, right? Yes, I know your people are throwing rocks and sticks, even Molotov cocktails in some instances. I get that, right? But let me tell you what wouldn't make this better. Troops opening fire on protesters with real bullets. Now, right now, they're already using rubber bullets, which can injure and even kill someone. And I actually see, you're supposed to aim it down for the rubber bullet to have it bounce off the pavement and then hit you, so it doesn't hit the velocities it can to actually go through your skull. But, I don't know. I'm not sure if that's true, how that works. But Tom Cotton, no, he doesn't want the rubber bullets. He wants the real bullets, right? The man is crazed and bloodthirsty. His mask has been, it's off. It's been off for a while. But when you see what's under that mask, it's grotesque. It's incredibly gross. Incredibly gross. Now, what's funny is that he talks about the 101st Airborne, right? You know that the 101st Airborne is literally Antifa. They're anti-fascist. These are the guys that parachuted into France to fight Nazis. Now, do you think these guys are most of the military would actually shoot American citizens at the behest of frickin' Tom Cotton? Are you kidding me? And by the way, total hypocrite. Total hypocrite. Tom Cotton was silent when armed right-wingers, these are protesters with the AR-15s, right? They decided to go and take over a state house. Was Tom Cotton saying we should bring in the military to take out these armed terrorists? No, he did not. What about when the Bundy clan was literally shooting their guns at federal agents? No, not at all. Of course not. No, but dare smash a window or protest in the street as a black person, and Tom Cotton literally wants to bring the state to murder you. This is ridiculous. This guy is a terrible, terrible person. There's only one side that people like Tom Cotton are on. And I'm going to tell you, I'm 100%, It's not the side of the people. All right. One more here. Let's try to make this a little quicker. As Black Lives Matter's protest... I didn't say that right. Let's try this again. As Black Lives Matter protests have gripped the entire country, and of course Trump's attention and everybody's essentially attention, Dr. Anthony Fauci, Trump's infectious disease expert in the White House coronavirus task force, is very concerned. He's very concerned that Trump is no longer focused on fighting COVID-19. In an interview with health-oriented news website Stat, published on Monday, Fauci said, "Trump's not really talking to me anymore." Well, that's not good. In fact, he said this, quote, "We used to have task force meetings every single day, including Saturday and Sunday. And about 75% of the time after the task force meeting, we'd meet back with the president. So I was meeting with him 4 times a week back a month or so ago. But as you probably noticed, that the task force meetings have not occurred as often lately. And certainly my meetings with the president have been dramatically decreased. Dramatically. Well, of course it has. I mean, Donald Trump and the right wing decided that coronavirus is basically over, right? The whole thing, done. We're sick of it, right? We're tired of the coronavirus, and so let's move on. Obamagate. And let's bring in the military to crush protesters. Yeah, so that's what they're on now, right? They said it's time to open up the country. Despite, of course, coronavirus cases nationally continuing to rise in places that have opened up. Now, the newest place to have opened up is actually my home state of Michigan, where, look, we have seen drop-off of cases, and that's good. However, I think it's not time, and certainly Dr. Fauci thinks that it's not quite time to begin to open up. But understand that she might not have had a choice. And by she, I mean Gretchen Whitmer. She and a lot of other governors right now, and it's not just a result of the protests, although that hasn't exactly helped in this situation. You've had state governments, their budgets are crushed. They've gotten destroyed by this virus by having to shut down. And they've gotten basically very little help from the federal government. So understand that these budgets, again, have been busted. And now they have to pay police. Now they're paying police extra to do, policing for the protests and all this stuff. And so these budgets are maxed out. So they have no choice but to reopen. And so that's the situation. That might actually be the situation here in Michigan, where budget constraints have basically forced our governor to open up before it's ready. And so even though that, Michigan has actually had a pretty good, pretty stringent stay-at-home order in place for some time. And so understand that, right? So now there's a new complication, again, that has entered the scene. As I mentioned before, it's the protests, right? Tens of thousands, even more, taken to the streets to protest the murder of George Floyd, right? And of course, to protest police brutality. Now, look, that's going to lead to more coronavirus infections. I'm kind of worried about that. And I think a lot of us should be too. Even though I do support the protesters, right? I'm also worried that this could be what triggers a second coronavirus wave that could be more, that would be more deadly than the first one. I don't even think we're done with the first one yet. And so trying to trigger a second one in a couple of weeks, that's not going to be good. That's going to be very bad. We've had 16 states that have opened up already, right? And some of them, for example, Georgia have opened up very, very aggressively. That's, of course, Brian Kemp, corrupt, incredibly corrupt, doesn't care at all about his citizens, about people, especially since most of the people dying for coronavirus are Black, overwhelmingly African-American have been dying from coronavirus, from COVID-19. And so that is a big, big problem. Brian Kemp doesn't care. Brian Kemp just wanted to open up the economy so that, I don't know, he could try to get reelected or something and help Donald Trump. It really doesn't matter to them, right? So now Trump, talking about him, he's not interested in leading on this issue. He's done with it. It's over. He's bored. His economic numbers are trash because of these shutdown. And so there goes his advantage in the election. That's it. I mean, everything is about Donald Trump staying in power. And that's it. That's it. Now, Trump, as a result, has stopped hosting daily press briefings on the country's coronavirus response after polling suggested that his appearances were hurting his favorability. Again, all about his reelection. All about it. And what do you expect is going to happen, right? If you go out there every day and do these coronavirus briefings, and then you say stupid things like, why don't we inject disinfectant? No, don't do that. That's stupid and ridiculous and deadly and stupid. Don't do that. But this is what the president says in these briefings, and then goes on to complain about the media. And so, yeah, of course it was hurting his reelection. And so maybe he took that as a thing of, well, they don't like me going out and talking about this. So it must be because it's over. No, it's not over. It's not over. We should be concerned about COVID-19. And again, unfortunately, being concerned about COVID-19 and showing the government is concerned about it goes now against the Republican message of, no, don't worry, go out. Go frequent the churches. And by the way, the whole thing about the churches is just all about getting money for the churches. You don't need a church to worship. No, you can worship at home and do just as good of a job. If you believe that God's everywhere, then it doesn't matter where you pray. No, that was, of course, all about the churches getting tithed. And let's be honest about that. And not only that, but they want people to go out to consume, to give these big corporations money, which have already made, what, $365 billion since the shutdown anyway. The people that have been hurt the most are small businesses, of which 100,000 are, estimated to have closed during this time or will close as a result of this economic upheaval and the fact that they have not been able to get access to this money, to this small pot of money, the Paycheck Protection Program, to be able to keep their businesses afloat. They haven't been able to do that. But the whole purpose of opening up, Donald Trump wants his numbers, his economic numbers to go up. And unfortunately, that's not going to happen. I mean, for one, people are still concerned about the virus, as they should be. In fact, a new poll, and I don't have the exact numbers, but a majority of Americans still say, no, we should be concerned about this virus. And even though, yes, there is obvious economic harm, but we really should stay concerned about this virus. Especially since, the numbers have shown in states that have already opened up, you have the rate of infections that have started to climb once again. Texas, Georgia, South Carolina, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a jump. There's going to be a spike here in Michigan as well in a couple of weeks. Now, some of the states, and I've reported this, in Florida, for example, they decided to no longer log coronavirus deaths. They're just flat out hiding the numbers. In Georgia, with Brian Kemp, they put the numbers of infections out of order in order to hide and to say, oh no, the trend, it's going down. When in reality, the trend was going back up. They just switched the dates to try to obfuscate, to try to make sure that people, would buy his narrative about, no, we're ready to open up. Everybody go back to business. Go back to spending money, consuming, and doing all that stuff and making my economic numbers go up. A little inconvenient with those numbers, unfortunately, rising. So here's the thing, right? Now, I was critical. You guys know I'm very critical of the right-wing anti-stay-at-home protests, right? Here's why I'm not critical of these protests, even though there is a huge risk to these protesters protesting for Black lives, right? So the anti-stay-at-home people, I'm not saying all of them, but I think there was a big majority of people who were wealthy white business owners. And then, of course, you also had the group of people that were right-wing militia cosplayers, essentially. And then I'm sure a small group of those people were people that were legitimately concerned about, of course, the economic issues. But I think those those other groups were massive. I mean, who made up the large majority of the protests. Okay, so I know I'm kind of like butchering this, but understand, right, that the people who are legitimately concerned about the economy and not their own financial interests in the form of their businesses opening up or their employees coming back to work are a small minority of these groups, right? So, no, the majority of people you had were people who wanted services again, like for people to take care of their kids, childcare, right? And for people to give them haircuts and to do their nails. They wanted the working class to essentially go back to work for them. Whereas these protesters for Black lives, I think these are mostly working class people and their allies that are calling for racial justice. And if there's one risk that's worth taking, I think it is for racial justice. It's to protect Black and brown lives and the lives of poor white people who also experience systemic violence. These are the people that are protesting police brutality. Black people and their white allies. They're protesting police brutality. They're not protesting the fact they can't get themselves lit up on Natty Light at the bar with their friends. So understand the privilege of these stay-at-home protesters versus the actual protesters that are protesting against police brutality for George Floyd. All I can hope, man, is that these protesters are staying as safe as they can while they're continuing to bring a light to these injustices across the country. That's all we can hope for. All right. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation with me. Please sign up. patreon.com/TWTNation. Subscribe. Hit the like button. Hit the share button. All that wonderful stuff helps us out greatly. All right, guys. Thank you. I'm going to go ease my mind by playing some Animal Crossing and numb the F out. I will see you guys tomorrow right here, 3 p.m. Eastern. TYT Nation. Again, like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys later. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, Nation. See you later. Stay safe.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Please clap.
Wait. You're getting nervous, man.
Mike Pounds.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.